way, but it hasn't grabbed everybody like that did. I don't know, that turned everybody around.
Sort of altered the course of...
even Coleman Hawkins was trying to play that way, and people that hated Charlie Parker and the commercial musicians eventually filtered into things like Tonight Show. And no music we play could be the same without Charlie Parker. It's noticeable. It's true of everybody to a lesser extent, but all the great artists. But to him, it really is noticeable. The eighth notes are forever that kind of eighth note since well, he started back in the late 30s, but we didn't know about him until the 40s. The eighth note has never been the same, just to give one example. Phrasing and...
And you know, there's a bootleg record out where Leonard Feather interviews Charlie Parker.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I've got it. And as a matter of fact, I quote it in this booklet that I'm giving out to the students today, way back there on page 37 or something. And it's, I took it right off the record because I thought it was so good. But he says his first setting in experience was, I think he was 16 years old or 17, and he was laughed off the bandstand. He only knew two songs, the melody, Up a Lazy River, and something else. I can't remember what the other, Honeysuckle Rose. All he knew was a melody, so no matter what they were playing, he played one of those two tunes. You can imagine how horrible that was. And he says they laughed him off the bandstand.
Yeah.
And I think the book, Bird Lives, says that Joe Jones, the drummer, got so upset that he threw his cymbal across the dance floor that night to get Charlie to stay, to get him off the stand. But then, if he started that way, then it means he started the same way all of us started, which is we didn't really know anything. And the ear wasn't developed at all. But it also means that he must have went out and did some practicing and started asking some questions, you know what I mean, and took care of business, because very shortly thereafter, then other people are listening to him and wondering, how is he doing what he's doing, you know?
Well, that's I wish I knew. I'm not enough of a historian, I guess, to really delve into it, but I've often wondered, because I can trace Dizzy, and I heard Dizzy's playing, and when he played like Roy Eldridge and so forth, the first thing I ever heard of Charlie Parker, he had to be pretty young, in those old Jay McShann things, it sounded like Charlie Parker back then. And Lee Konitz and another alto player recorded one of his solos with all that convoluted rhythms and dislocated harmonies and moved around, the rhythmic things that he was famous for, that all came from him, evidently. And where the hell did he get that? You know, that's it. That's why I once said to an interviewer in Downbeat, Charlie Parker, unlike some of the other artists, that you can see their derivation. He sprang full-blown from the head of Zeus. I was getting a little flowery. But I meant that he appeared from nowhere, already developed, as though he had no development period, evidently. I mean, there's no way to, I couldn't trace it. And of course, she was bugged. She said he came from the blues or something. And that's true in a way, but we all do. But his concept was not only original, but of course very valid. It took everybody by the throat, so to speak. But nevertheless, I've never been able to find a record or anything of Charlie where he played like, a little bit like Lester Young maybe, but nothing but a hint. And that was, as far back as I know, that anyone had any recordings of him. So from the period when he couldn't play and knew two tunes and was playing the same tune, and they threw him off the bandstand, to where he started playing like he's playing, I don't know what happened. Does anyone know?
I don't. The only story I ever heard was a little bit like Jamey's, and that he was told, you know, you've got to learn to play everything that you play in every key. And that he took that to heart, and it really...
Charlie?
I heard he learned to play the blues, practice the blues in all 12 keys, Cherokee in all keys, and I got rhythm. That's the story that supposedly is told.
That's what I've heard.
Someone told him this is what he should do.
Did you know? You didn't know Charlie?
No.
You're too young.
No.
But
I heard him play once.
I knew Charlie, and I played with him and all that. And he used to come over to the apartment in Columbus Circle and hang out once in a while. We'd listen to him. I remember one night he came over and said, he'd just knock on anybody's door, you know, to try to get a free drink or a couple of bucks for, you know. But he came in and says, you got any pot? No. You got any gin? Well, I think there's a bottle of gin. Give him the bottle of gin, sit down. Now he wants to, do you have any bar talk? Oh yeah, we got all the quartets. And he wanted to hear bar talk. He says, we got gin and bar talk. We don't need anything else. And we talked and listened. He really liked, and he was very fond of, I was surprised, really. I didn't know, because he's an uneducated fellow, you know, I mean, in the ordinary sense of education. But then he started talking about Schoenberg, and he started talking about Pierre Lanier, and I was familiar with it, but he really knew that music, and he really loved Bartok.
Yeah.
And not surprisingly, because Bartok was a very rhythmic, interesting composer. So we played the Fifth Quartet, and I was showing him this part. I said, "That sounds like you, the Alla Bulgari's scherzo, the it's 9/8, but it's duple. It's 1/8, an eighth rest and an 8/8 notes, you know? And then the background was one da 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 da. Not 9/8, just 9/8 notes.
Yeah.
But that part always sounded like Bird. I said, listen to that. That sounds like you. And the comping off. It feels like weak beats, like you were talking about in class. And but he was an interesting fellow.